All right. Bookstore Stories, Episode 1, our official beginning. Yes, yes, indeed. Scott here at Tsunami. Uh, Hope you're enjoying yourselves at home. You know, you've got clean pajamas on today. No,
Hopefully.
yes, or whatever. You're at home. Just be comfortable. We have today a friend of the bookstore, current principal of the Friends,
The Wellsprings Friends School.
the Wellsprings Friends School, who Dennis used to, everybody knows Dennis from the past. Dennis was there forever.
Yeah.
Dante is the new principal. And Dante, how do you pronounce your last name?
Yeah, it's Dante Zuniga-West.
Wow. Dante's going to read a story for us. He's read often at certain events that we have here, very special evenings. And I'm just going to turn it over. Take it away.
Thanks, Scott. Thank you, people of the book. Please keep reading books and coming here, buying books, reading them, and sharing them. Even more importantly, pass one on if you have one. When I talked with Scott a little bit about reading tonight, I thought about what it was I would bring to the table, and I dug up some stuff from the grad school years about a decade ago. I figured, hey, if anyone's in grad school for writing or thinking about going to grad school for writing, it might be interesting to listen to. And if not, hey, at least it could be a semi-good time. So, on creative writing. When I first arrived at grad school for creative writing, a place where the strongest creative writers of their generation meet and commence in the study of writing, I got asked a lot of questions. What made you want a master's degree? What college did you go to before? What do you write about? Do you live on campus? And then, slowly, as my colleagues came to know me, more questions arose. What's your inspiration? How do you classify your own writing? Do you write at night? Do you write in the morning? How do you deal with writer's block? And then, as the warfare of academically validating a creative process continued, my classmates attempted to learn even more about me. Other questions arose. Are you crazy? Do you have a therapist? Do you use drugs when you write? Do you drink when you write? Do you drink when you edit? Are you a nihilist? Are you a hedonist? Are you a communist? Are you an anarchist? Are you sober? Do you think you'll ever be published? Would you ever consider writing children's books? Do you know where I can buy some pot? I suppose that writing has always catalyzed a great deal of questions. In the real world outside of graduate school, people ask me about writing like it's something that exists externally, an enigmatic force to be known or sought out. The complicated aspect of speaking to such an assumption is that no matter what one says, he or she is immediately lying. Yes, writing is a slave to language, meaning that writing itself is the process of manipulating letters, words, and symbols to communicate ideas, thoughts, and images. So, in committing to the study of writing, one is seeking out a science of sorts. However, above and beyond all forms of science exists the unmentionable, that which cannot be defined. What I'm speaking of in this case is the internal meat of the subconscious. Creative writing is the mastery of the subconscious. Not only the subconscious of the writer, but the subconscious of the reader, or many readers. Being able to comprehend, manipulate, and call upon preconceived indisputable truths in human nature, and use such knowledge for a greater cause, is what sits at the core of such pursuits. I try to keep this in mind when I sit down to write, because digging around in here isn't always fun. A mind can be a terrible place to live. Most of the time, I don't want to know what is in here. It is staircases, spiral broken down chunks of matter, energy that missed the entropy cycle somewhere along the way. The craft has become my hand, my finger, the big toe. A piece of skin attached to the bone. To sever it would mean bleeding to death, and there is no surgeon and no doctor capable of aiding me. This is a lonely poison, a desert-dwelling beast, and you get tired of the fakery, the lies you find inside yourself, the dark pieces of glass that one must study and swallow to continue on. And it gets bitter, like the tip of some wild nettle, crushed, mixed with water, a wild man's carvings in the quiet snow of nowhere. They say the blank page is an open world. It may be the only free place I know of. I hide from the daily reality where getting punched out by time clocks is a common occurrence. I never wanted to go to paradise. I was simply content to pay $500 a month and live in a dark apartment on Fox Hollow Road next to the rotting carcass of my creative ambitions. It's not so bad. because I know me, and I wouldn't be able to stop writing even if agents of the former Bush administration stormed my house with assault rifles and tear gas, demanding that I do so. Just couldn't do it. Which leads me to my next point of conversation concerning writing, young people, and destiny. When I was a teenager, I was such a delinquent that no one in their right mind wanted to respect my opinion. When I met adults whom I respected, I saw them not as mentors, but rather as worthy opponents, whose ideologies were to be disproven and escaped. Needless to say, I was not very popular with my elders. Most of my so-called peers were not very interested in discussing anything other than the events of the previous weekend, so I spent a lot of time alone. Writing became for me a form of company. I didn't really choose it. It just sort of wanted to talk to someone who would listen without judgment. I wanted to validate my existence. So to someone or something, I was creating or had come into a foundational part of myself. I didn't know that was what I was doing at the time. I didn't see it as writing. I saw it as some sort of release. I got older. I started reading because I realized that most of the people who I thought were stupid did not. My father's liquor cabinet was not far from his mammoth-sized bookcases, and I took pleasure in indulging from both stockpiles. I stuck to the classics. The Odyssey, Jack Daniels. The Iliad, Smirnoff. Wuthering Heights, Captain Morgan. Moby Dick, Shakespeare. Jose Cuervo, Joseph Campbell, Aristotle, Grey Goose. Edgar Allan Poe, Herodotus, Hennessy, and Dante. A lot of times the old literature bored me, but I forced myself to read through it anyway. It appeared rather drab, all the words those writers used, and how I had to work hard to figure out what the hell they were talking about. Nevertheless, I read them because I knew that there was some link between what I was doing and what they had done. Time passed. Friends died. Graduations occurred, and I grew older again. I ended up in a small town on the edge of Puget Sound Peninsula at a radical liberal arts university. My first day of college was September 11th, 2001, and I remember sitting by myself in my new dorm room writing about how I thought America was going to war. Months passed, and I barely spent time in that dorm room. I'd made new friends who also wrote, and spent most of our time outside, camping, running around 1,500 acres of rainforest that directly bordered the east end of the campus. There were tree houses, tent cities, wild mushrooms, and drum circles. We rented books from the library, and we read them out loud around bonfires during the nights of full moons, and it was Bukowski, Edward Abbey, Thoreau, Gregory Corso, T.C. Boyle, William S. Burroughs, Che Guevara, Carlos Castaneda, Tom Robbins, Chuck Palahniuk, John Barth, and Hunter S. Thompson. We broke into old military bases near Port Townsend on the edge of the sea and wrote by candlelight in abandoned bomb shelters. We ditched classes and went to Denny's, ordered numerous pots of coffee, and wrote for many hours at a time. And my writing continued to come out. It was poetry and sometimes fiction, and non-fiction short stories about the end of the world. And shortly after, all of those friends graduated or went abroad to other countries, or wound up in prison, or rehab, or grad school. And I know for a fact that they all continued to write there because whatever it was never left them. I myself got a girlfriend and spent my time laying in bed with her, reading. And it was Pablo Neruda, Khalil Gibran, Lord Byron, the Marquis de Sade, and Saul Williams, Sylvia Plath, Isabella Allende, Anais Nin, Murakami, and Mishima. And I would stay up late at night after my lover had fallen asleep, writing about how I wanted to stab the sky at sunset and drink the world with her. I got tired of the fact that most of the people I'd been reading in school were old white men, and I started going out of my way to read authors of color. I bought more books. Langston Hughes, County Cully, Ralph Ellison, Huey Newton, Claude McKay, Malcolm X, Elridge Cleaver. And time passed, and grandparents died, and scholarships, and senior thesis, and commencement ceremonies, and that girl broke my heart, so I decided to spend a year as a drunk man with a laptop and far too much to say. Still, writing was there. Books littered the floor of my Jeep. I was older then, so it was Hemingway, and Orwell, Huxley, Dumas, D.H. Lawrence, and Knut Hamsun. It was Ursula Le Guin, and Hermann Hesse, and Orson Scott Card. I spent a lot of time in a small coffee shop in Oregon, writing science fiction and pretending that I had the courage to talk to beautiful college girls who came in to purchase chai tea and scones. And sitting there, all disgruntled, working on a short story that turned into my second novel, I realized I'd been writing again. And I had never stopped. That whenever it hurt, whenever I was confused, whenever I was lonely, whenever I was happy, whenever I was vengeful, whenever I was romantically enamored, whenever something that was so fucked up it was hard to explain happened to me, I wrote. I suppose I could have chosen not to, but that didn't really seem like a choice. And I forgot whatever point I was trying to make about young people and destiny and the subconscious nature of writing, so please forgive me. Maybe I was leading up to or back to grad school, a place where some people went to enhance their writing, and some people went because their parents told them, and some people went to secure a place in academia, and some people went because they couldn't deal with themselves in the real world and mistook such an opportunity as a temporary escape route. Whatever. There is no school that can teach you how to be a writer. There is no answer to the question of why writers write. That being said, I've been fortunate enough to have had several great teachers in my academic history. Some did not teach creative writing, but most of them did. The first of them, whose Zen-like demeanor I will never forget, told me, always write what you know. The last of them, a man of few words and many publications, advised me with a single sentence that has never left my mind. Just tell the fucking story.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Dante.